didn't know you were there. Welcome to my video. Right, I thought I'd do a bit of a blog in this video to talk about what it's like to work in a call centre in the UK. From an employee's perspective, point of view. Hopefully this will be informative, and I hope I don't bore you too much, because it can be a boring subject. So I've worked in many call centres, right, and I've gathered a lot of experience, and I think I want to share that with you. So I've worked in sales, I worked in customer service, and I've also done a little bit of work in admin as well. So I've worked in various companies, from banking to electrical equipment, like TVs and what have you, and I've worked in telecommunications, so mobile phone companies. And I've gathered a lot of information, and I think I'll share that with you. So sales, let's start off with sales. You're pressurised to sell products. That's your job. You tend to get a bonus. Sometimes it's on commission only, but I don't tend to go for those jobs because they're not worth doing, basically. You know, I want to make sure I get a decent wage at the end of the month. The bonus can be equal to your normal monthly pay. I know people that used to be selling PPI insurance, for example, and doubled their wage with the bonus. So they're more or less encouraged to lie to customers to sign up to PPI. And we all know the fiasco with PPI, where compensation is paid out because of mis-selling. Mis-selling did happen a lot. Advisors would literally say, you can only have this loan if you take out the insurance. Even though I know the insurance cost was going to cost them about £30 a month, but they could get it for £10 a month independently in a different company online that you could just do a Google for. So a lot of our advisors were mis-selling. I didn't do it, so I was pushed out of the department into customer service when I showed an interest to leave the department within a day. Unbelievable. Because my stats were really poor, because I didn't like selling something that people didn't want. I don't like pressurising people into buying stuff they don't want. Simple as that. I'm a people person, a customer service person, and I like talking to people and sorting their problems out. I don't like shoving a product down their throat when I know they probably won't want it. I used to have calls with police officers. I know they're heavily protected by the government. They don't need PPI insurance, and yet we're forced to sell it to them. Anyway, so that's why PPI was an issue. If any of you guys have wondered how come it was an issue, mis-selling was happening because people wanted to get bonuses and hit their targets. That simple. Right, so I moved to customer service, sorted customers' problems out, generally got shouted at and called a bastard, cunts, you're a load of tossers, you're wankers, that sort of thing, when we couldn't sort their problems out. We used to have other departments that we used to transfer them to, which was in India or Pakistan or Indonesia or Thailand or the Philippines, and people hated talking to those people. Honestly, they didn't. People would leave the company. I think I worked for an insurance company once, for an electrical company that's gone bust now, actually, incidentally, and people would say, "Oh, I'm gonna leave the company completely because I don't want to talk to a foreigner." And I'd say, "Oh, let me try and sort the problem out for you," and I tried my best. But that's why a lot of the UK companies are quite successful, because they've realised that there's a backlash. The public don't want to talk to foreigners in other countries. They want to speak to someone who has a good grasp of English, and not just English. I'm not trying to come across as being racist or judgmental, but it's not a matter of not being able to speak English. You can speak English but not understand the culture behind the English. And if you don't understand the different accents, you know, you've got Scottish, you've got Irish, you've got Southerners, Northerners, you've got people like in Newcastle, Liverpool, they're all got their different accents, you know, and it can be difficult to understand those accents. a foreigner to try and understand the culture and the different accents is almost impossible. They can't get their head round it. And that's why a lot of customers, there was a lot of backlash, and there still is a lot of backlash. People don't want to talk to some foreigner, you know. So let's just talk about what it's like to work as a customer service advisor in the UK as an employee, right? You are monitored a lot. Toilet breaks are monitored and timed. Your breaks are monitored and timed. Your lunch is monitored and timed. Your start time is monitored and timed. So if you log on in the morning, say your bus was late, and you log on, I don't know, a minute late, you can get into a lot of trouble for that. Your calls are monitored as well. I don't know if you know that. There'll be managers monitoring each advisor's calls. Generally they monitor 3 calls a month. And if you get what they call a bad call ob, you have a one-to-one with your manager, and if you've done really poorly, you could get sacked. It's that bad, you know. So as an advisor, you feel like it's the Mother's Day that you're living under. It's like Big Brother, you know. I always try to help people out with their problems when they rung up, but it's really hard to stay upbeat if every call you get is nothing but someone moaning and complaining about this, that and the other. And at some point you're going to have a bad call. I'm guaranteed that bad call you have, your manager will be monitoring. Don't get me wrong, it can be a rewarding job, because if you sort someone's problem out and you say, well, not say, but you really feel like you've helped that person out, you've got a lot of satisfaction from that. And that's why a lot of people do the job in the first place, because they enjoy that interaction. But I'll give you an example in terms of stats. I used to have 13 calls an hour. Now if you had a really complex call that lasted half an hour, that means you've only got half an hour to get another 12 calls in. And if you didn't hit your target, you tended to get into a bit of trouble. Sometimes these companies like you to resign rather than get fired. Just keep that in mind. And you know, I'm going to come out and say, yeah, all right, I was sacked from one of them. Reason was just recorded a few bad calls I had. You know, it happens. It's a difficult job to keep upbeat and constantly take call after call after call, and have bad call after bad call. And you might have a good call, you might have a great call, but it is repetitive, and a lot of times you're encouraged to read off a script. I found it hard doing that, because I felt I'm not a robot, I'm a human being, you know. Yeah, I've done a bit of administration work as well within call centre work. I actually preferred that, and I was told, and I'll give you this advice to you if you're in the industry or you are thinking about getting a job in the call centre industry. Keep in mind what I've said, so it might not be positive. Someone said to me once, you won't be doing this job longer than 5 years. The reason is 5 years tends to burn people out. So that's why a lot of people try and strive to become a manager or a supervisor very quickly, because it's easier doing that job than constantly taking call after call all the time. Managers do take calls, but normally it's just the few difficult ones that the normal reps can't handle. In general, that's more or less what the managers do, as well as monitor people's calls. You know, when I worked in a banking company, and the company got found out that their salespeople were mis-selling insurance, PPI, and they were told to set up a department to monitor their calls, because there were too many complaints coming through. This is why the PPI was such a major issue in the country, and why there was, I think it was 6 billion was set aside to to sort out and refund all these people that are being missold to. And that's why I think the deadline is August 2019, something like that. So any of you guys out there who want to claim on your PPI insurance that you were missold, do it very soon, because as soon as it gets to that point, you won't be able to claim. And you could claim thousands of pounds back, literally, if you were missold. But because the records will only go back so far, because of the Debt Protection Act and all that, the banks can't prove that you were not missold. The only thing you might have a problem with claiming them to get your money back on missold payment protection insurance is if you've claimed on it. If you've claimed on it, you won't be able to get your money back. But if you never have, there's a good chance you can. And all you have to do is send a letter to your bank. You know, all these payment protection insurance companies that came up and say, ring us and we'll sort it all out for you, and then they take about 30% of it. Well, you don't need to ring or deal with these companies. You just send a letter to your bank, and they'll send you a reply, and they might offer you some money. You don't have to go to these companies that keep ringing people up asking, have you got any, were you missold payment protection insurance, you know. So my advice is just write a letter to your bank, by the way. But getting back to the subject of the video, obviously a lot of call centres are based in foreign countries, and that's why there's a lot of backlash. A lot of UK customers don't want to deal with companies that have call centres in other countries. Now the reason there are call centres in other countries is because they've got a deal where the phone line is really cheap with the country, so customers can ring it and they save a fortune, because they can pay that person in India maybe £2 or £3 an hour, opposed to paying a UK person £7.50 an hour, because obviously there's a minimum wage. And that's why they do it. You know, it's just cheaper. It comes down to money. Simple thing as that is money. The problem is these people in India can't speak fluent English, or even if they can understand English, they don't understand the different cultures. They're not able to speak English like you and I can together. You know, it's like broken English that you can barely understand what they're on about. So just because you can speak English doesn't mean you can be fluent in English, does it? You know, they have to understand different cultures, different accents, and I think you can only get that skill in the country, you know, where the cultures are practiced. It's like me going to France. I can teach myself French. I can go to France. But do you think that French language that I've learned, they're going to be able to talk to me fluently, like we're best mates? It just won't happen, because it's just so different. Cultures, different histories, that all impacts language, you see. But yeah, getting back to the subject, I want to talk about what it's like to be in a call centre. You're monitored heavily, literally. The wage ain't great. You might be asked to do unsociable hours as well, so you won't get any extra for that. The only time you might expect to get paid double might be on Christmas Day. Sometimes it's double on Boxing Day, and it might be treble on Christmas Day, depending on what company you work for, obviously. I worked in telecommunications, mobile phone companies, and you get so much abuse if you cut someone's phone off, but generally it's because they've not paid the bill, and you know, you have to just convince people of that. There was issues with mobile phone retailers as well. I believe one company has gone bust now. I won't mention the name, but let's just say they were big in the news for mis-selling things, such as tariffs. Some people will be on massive tariffs when they didn't need it, or the mobile phones didn't work, they send it back and never got a replacement. So, you know, that's the telecommunication call centre industry. It's very similar to the banking industry, except you'll get more abuse. It's difficult, it's a hard job to constantly take verbal abuse on a regular basis. So that's call centres for you. It can be challenging, can be very difficult to do that job. It's really up to you. I hope I haven't put you off doing it. You know, it is an experience, and if you're a student, it's an ideal job. You can do your college stuff and then come to work in the evenings if they'll let you work part-time, and get a bit of extra cash. But there are other jobs that are probably better. You know, consider driving jobs as an alternative. But yeah, it's up to you what you think about this video. But if I was to advise someone about becoming a customer service advisor, the one thing I would say to them is, if I was giving you advice about whether to work as a call centre advisor, one thing I would recommend that you don't do is fall into the trap of doing it full time, because the problem with that is, if that's the only job you've ever had and the only job you can do, you will find it incredibly difficult to find a job in a different sector, because every company you go to, every recruitment company will say, but you've got all this experience in doing this, we can put you forward for that job. And maybe you've had enough of talking to people on the phone. Maybe you want to do something different, like administration, data inputting, driving, you know. And it can be very difficult to make that break. And it can take you years sometimes to find an employer willing to take you on, even though what you can do is completely different to what they're looking for. So keep that in mind, that you can be stereotyped as well in the employment market. So I hoped I give you a bit of insight on what it's like to work in customer service in a call centre. And have a nice day.